Women's World Championships is the big story this week, and we're watching closely all the events that are happening in Utica. So we'll look at obviously Team Canada and Team USA and some of the other happenings that are noteworthy. Welcome on in to the Puck Drop Podcast.
It's time for the PWHL Puck Drop Podcast.
And we're welcoming this week Ian Kennedy. He is the editor of the Hockey News women's site, and so glad to have him on. We know we're going to get some inside scoops and information. So thanks for dropping by, Ian. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem. We have a lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right into it. I know you're on the scene keeping tabs as the World Championship gets started in Utica, and the two favorites, obviously, the champions of the last five winners, I believe, Team Canada and Team USA. And what's the biggest headline that's jumping out for you for either of those?
Oh, there's so much. I think with the USA, it's the incredible youth that they've decided to go with here, whether it's Layla Edwards being the first ever Black woman to represent Team USA at the World Championships. Kirsten Sims, who was the leading scorer in the NCAA, just a spectacular player. And of course, they brought along the NCAA Rookie of the Year, Joy Dunn, as well, who Jinsey is her sister in PWHL Ottawa. So the USA has a lot of really exciting and new players, while Canada is bringing a very familiar roster. But we do have some concerns there, of course. Marie-Philippe Poulin's been out for a couple of weeks now.
Yeah.
She has been practicing with Team Canada, not as a full participant, which is concerning, I think, for everyone involved. Concerning for PWHL Montreal fans, concerning for Canadian fans. Canada had Jennifer Gardner, a forward from Ohio State, in their camp, kind of taking that roster spot in their exhibition game and moving forward. But I think that we'll see her play. I think that we'll see her get stronger as the tournament goes on. I'm not sure if she'll get the large amounts of ice time early on because Canada knows that they'll inevitably be facing a weaker competition in the quarterfinals. So I don't think they'll overuse her. I think they're going to be very cautious to begin with. But those are two of the things that I'll be following right off the bat, along with the PWHL draft picks that or potential draft picks throughout the tournament. For myself, that's been a big point of following this season. So those are the things that I'll be looking for immediately from those teams.
Yeah, those are the biggest headlines. Just to touch on Poulin for a minute, it's been speculated that it's a knee injury, but not confirmed. I don't know if they've even said lower body. But we did see a picture of her skating and, looking like she's skating all right, but you don't have actual word on usage or when she might make an appearance.
I think she's going to be back right off the bat. It definitely is a lower body. Knee is a good guesstimate. She did deal with some back injuries earlier in the year, so it could be a couple of things compounding themselves right now. But I grew up in the Detroit Red Wings era when they won the Stanley Cup regularly, and I remember watching Steve Yzerman do it all on one knee. And we're not talking about that situation here with Marie-Philippe Poulin. We're talking about an injury that is manageable, that's not going to be career threatening at this point. It's just kind of a rest and recoup. Will she have to deal with more later on? Who knows? But for this point, I mean, a one need 80% Marie-Philippe Poulin is still probably the best player in the world. So I think that we can rest confidently on that. And maybe it will cause some of those other Canadian players that have been a little quieter in recent international competition to step up, or maybe it will be the catalyst for Team Canada giving more opportunities to the younger players like Danielle Serdachny and Julia Gosling, who I think, from watching them in the rivalry series this season, can be incredible impact players on that roster if they're given top six kind of minutes or even middle six.
Yeah, agree. Definitely. The Goslings are a story to watch. Very exciting to see them both on the team. And you're right, maybe people like Laura Stacy, Blair Turnbull, Spooner, of course, have to step up. But the good news is the round robin games won't be as challenging. So if they keep Poulin limited, it should still be all right. As far as I know, Sir Daphne did miss the game against Finland. Was there a story there, whether an injury or anything?
I think that was just a roster lineup change or decision at that point. It could be a little bit of management as well there, but as far as I know, she can be expected to be ready to go full time. But I mean, she's a spectacular player, was the NCAA's leading scorer last year, kind of a top five player this year. But in the rivalry series, it really was her along with Julia Gosling in those games in December that helped start to turn things around for Canada. Without them on the ice, they didn't look that good. USA was all over them when they had their NCAA players in, and they were, two sizable players, used their bodies well, unafraid to take the puck right to the middle of the ice and to the net, and kind of, Canada is this veteran roster that's been together for so long. They all know each other like the back of their hands. But when you infuse a couple of people that are maybe trying to take someone's spot in the future, maybe it gives them a little bit of jump. And I think that fans can get excited for a player like Julia Gosling. We've seen how good Natalie Spooner is, and I've described Gosling as like a younger Spooner, and really that power forward model that Natalie Spooner's been so great this year in the PWHL. So, I think people can, even if Poulin is hurt a little bit or we see other people out, I don't think we've ever seen Natalie Spooner as ready for a tournament as we do right now.
Oh yeah, true enough. That's an interesting comparison. I like that. They are very similar. And as far as the USA, there was a little bit of surprise or just, eyebrows raised when their roster was announced, and they definitely went for all the young players who are coming off great NCAA performances. Um, so it'll be a different look for sure than the rivalry series, and hard to predict, but what do you see happening as far as that youth movement versus Canada's, like you say, comfortable veteran roster?
Well, if you look at the rivalry series from the last 2 years, the USA's jumped out to 3-0 leads both years and then lost in game seven. And the difference in my mind is that the first 3 to 4 games of that series always involve the NCAA players. And then the last three are strictly professional.
Right.
So those NCAA players are really difference makers. And we saw it last year. Of course, it was Hillary Knight that scored the goals in the gold medal game. But I don't believe she does that without Tessa Janicki and Abby Murphy and Taylor Heise and Hannah Bilka, who
Mhm.
were just literally the motors of that team. They kept the pace moving. They probably, based on their youth, didn't feel the years and years of back and forth gold medals, of losing golds and winning golds as heavily as some of the veteran players. So I think that that's going to continue on in this case. Of course, losing Lee Steckline, who chose to walk away from the national team this year, is definitely going to be something they'll have to contend with on the blue line. They brought in Sydney Morrow, who is a completely different style defender than Steckline. She's very offensive, but they have so much skill, so much speed. It will be fascinating to see how that translates to the world stage. But whether or not they get bumped off in that final gold medal game or a semifinal game, it'll be luck of the draw because they are so good that it looks like a team that will be dominant from now through the 2026 Olympics and beyond that, where it just seems to be the USA's model. And some people have said that maybe it's because um, they have a budget and they
Mhm.
can't pay national stipends to all the professional players. When NCAA players can't receive that money yet because of their amateur status. But it's working. They're incredibly skilled. Like I said, Kirsten Sims to me is just the most exciting player. I think that fans that haven't got to see her in a dominant or predominant way on national television are going to be wowed when they see her control the puck in the offensive zone and on the power play. It's really something fun to watch.
Yeah.
And Haley Wynn on the blue line does a very similar thing for USA as well. So I love their roster.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a I don't think that they detracted anything from where they were last year for gold to where they're going to be this year. And more importantly, I think that the USA is looking at this as a 4-year cycle up towards the Olympics.
Yeah, agreed. It's with an eye to the 2026 Olympics. They're definitely on different trajectories as far as, getting the young players in and ready for that action. And Canada's going to have a couple of, you know, choices to make as they build towards that. So it all just makes for a fascinating tournament. Yeah, let's talk for a second about those potential PWHL draft pick players. I know you wrote an article on that, which we'll link to. And for PWHL fans, like you mentioned, some of these young players are going to be draft eligible, and I'm sure the order is shifting right now. But who are we keeping a special eye on from your point of view?
Well, of course, Canada's got two first-round draft picks in my mind, and Sarah Fillier and Sir Dackney. USA has Hannah Bilka and Kayla Barnes, who should both go in the first round. There's lots of other players, if they declared, would go that early as well, but they're not going to. But where I think it really gets exciting is watching players from other nations. Noor Toulouse from Finland, Ronja Salvalainen from Finland, Danielle Pejsova from Czechia, and their goaltender Klara Peslarova. Those are some very established players that will step immediately into the PWHL next season and probably open the eyes to some people about the talent that's coming from elsewhere. There definitely will be some picks available from other teams in this tournament a little bit farther down the line. Maybe a player like Anna Shelban, who's from Sweden, who um, will probably be a middle to late round draft pick. She's their captain this year, but just a steady defender. And then, it's going to be exciting to see who else steps up and who else catches our eye. Klara Himlerova and Noemi Neubauer from Czechia, are both going to declare as well. So there's a lot of people to watch. Nobody to my mind from Switzerland, nobody from my mind from Japan. So it's really kind of the big four of Czechia, Canada, USA, and Finland that are going to draw the biggest attention from this draft and are going to have players that are not only draft picks, but just like last year, stepping in and becoming top line professionals right off the bat. And that's the most exciting part is that when PWHL fans see this season end, I mean, if you get Sarah Fillier or Hannah Bilka or Kayla Barnes, it's going to be uh, team changing
Oh, yeah.
to a point where we're getting these players that are not these 18-year-olds stepping in and take a few years. They're going to step in and be first line players right off the bat.
Yes, yes. Those Finnish defenders are going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. And it's, for the scouts or for the GMs to see them head to head, I think will be important to kind of just gauge where they stand. But you're right, those veteran players are, I would think, going to be drafted rather high, because they can definitely step in and be difference makers.
Yeah, and I have spoken to just about every general manager who will be there. Obviously, Gina Kingsbury is involved with Canada,
Mhm.
but and Troy Ryan's going to be Canada's coach. Carla McLeod's coaching Czechia. But most every team, either the general manager or scouting staff will be there because the preparations for the draft are well underway with teams. They've already got lists being formed. Most of them are narrowing down their lists because the NCAA season's over, and this is the last real look that anybody is going to get at a player before June. So it's not like the men's league where there'll still be some opportunities closer to the draft. This is it. So
Mhm.
I would expect that PWHL teams will be all hands on deck in terms of staff getting a look, whether it's video or in person. But I do know that there's going to be a good attendance from PWHL general managers and coaches this week.
Yeah, it's just so exciting. It as each part unfolds that's brand new, with the gold plan and the playoff format, and now, the draft with basically wide open declaration, no age requirements or things like that. You might see some surprises, but the brand new novelty of how they're doing everything it's been just so fun to watch. So, really quick, if we could touch on Team Czechia, as you mentioned, Carla McLeod, and she's got three players in PWHL Ottawa that are together now and building that little corner of the world in Ottawa. But they've taken bronze the last couple of years. What do you see from them? Could they pull off an upset?
I think that anybody can pull off an upset right now. I mean, we saw Sweden take Canada to overtime in the quarterfinals last year. In a one-game elimination, if you get a hot goaltender, it could happen. And Peslarova for Czechia is the best goaltender outside of North America that's not in the PWHL right now. Um, I would expect that there'll be a couple of teams, perhaps Ottawa, Toronto, that will be looking to make an upgrade in net to have kind of a 1A, 1B situation. But Czechia has a lot of very talented players. And I wrote about Katerina Mrazova as well, who has really taken the world by storm this year by proving that how elite she is. She's fourth in PWHL scoring, of course, and just a really gifted playmaker, but also smaller and not afraid to go to the dirty areas. And that's kind of Czechia's calling card, is that they will do anything. They'll block shots. They're going to sacrifice. They're going to get in your face and play tough. I love, love, love Natalie Mlinkova from Vermont. She's their captain there, and she plays for Czechia as well. Really talented two-way player. She just finished her fourth year there. I would have loved to see her declare for the draft, but I think we're going to have to wait one more season for her. And Czechia also has one of the most talented young players in the world in Adela Sapovalova,
Yes.
who
Well
uh,
said.
thank you. I know I hit it first try.
Wow.
But she is just spectacular. So shifty, so agile. Really had a great year in Sweden this year. Coming to the NCAA, so that's going to be exciting to see her there. But they've got a lot of different pieces together in Czechia that's going to make them a really talented team. Finland as well this year probably has the best forward group that they've had in years. So either one of those teams in that one game elimination could pull off an upset. It's really possible, but it's just also really exciting to see four teams now that you can say that about,
Hmm.
and perhaps five teams. It used to only be Canada and USA, and if an upset happened, it would have ended the world. But um, people are waiting now, and people are expecting that those upsets are going to come sooner than later, and then we won't call them upsets anymore. And that will be the most exciting day when um, this becomes an 8-team deep tournament or 10-team deep tournament where anybody can beat anybody on any given night. And we're not there yet, but the PWHL is definitely going to help that as well when we start to see more players make their way over to North America.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has a soft spot for Team Czechia and Carla McLeod and what she's done. And you're right, Mrazova has been, we knew the skill was there, but she's, gotten stronger as the games have gone on, and expecting all good things from PWHL Ottawa at this point.
I
Um,
remember last year at the Worlds, Carla McLeod. I mean, she can turn anything into gold, I guess is
yes,
her, the worst situation. They had just lost the quarterfinal, um, or sorry, the semifinal, and they were going to the bronze game instead of gold. And she walked into the interview room after that game with the biggest smile on her face and proclaimed to everyone that we get to play for a medal. And
right.
it wasn't like we just lost. I wish we were in the gold medal game. She was very clear that this is early still in their plan for Czechia in terms of where they're going. And she can make a rainbow out of a storm cloud every single time. And I think that's an infectious thing for a nation that has always been looked at as an underdog. And when your coach looks at you after a loss and says, we're still playing for a medal, this is the best thing that our program's got to do in history. It's
Yeah.
a really takes that pressure off of you of always coming in as the underdog and just lets you play free. And I think that's what you see with Czechia a bit.
Mhm.
And what you see a little bit now with PWHL Ottawa
Mhm.
is they're starting to come on as well.
Yeah, she is definitely a gem. And, I don't think anyone will be surprised or even unhappy if Czechia ends up in the gold medal game against one of the big two nations. It would be exciting to see it. So we'll wrap this up, but we have to always kind of get your prediction or um if you don't mind kind of calling who you think. I mean, I think the USA Canada differences are going to be fascinating. Can you predict a winner, or would you go out on a limb at this point?
I'm Canadian, so I'm going to predict USA because I think maybe I'll jinx it a little bit,
Oh,
but
all right.
I really think that
Reverse
they're
jinx.
just a very talented team. But one game playoff, anything can happen. But I do think that they, on paper, are probably the more skilled team. But it will be to see who comes together quicker. But USA, Canada, of course. Um, and then if I was picking a bronze, I think I'm going to go with Finland this time around, just because I think that there'll be a mix-up and they've got a really incredible crew of players there. But that all depends on how that quarterfinal matchup comes to see if, like last year, we had Finland and Czechia play in the quarterfinals, which was truly the bronze medal game. But it's all exciting. Anything can happen, and but I do think USA is probably the team to beat. Even if they don't win gold, they definitely are going in as the favorites.
Yeah, I would have to agree. So we'll pick them, and maybe that will end up as a jinx somehow. I've jinxed every pick that I've made. I picked Boston to finish first and Montreal to finish last. So it's fine. If I pick someone, that means they're not gonna show up the way we wanted. But well, thank you so much. Those are great stories to watch. And as it unfolds, we're gonna be keeping a close eye on all the players from the PWHL and upcoming in the PWHL. Thank you, Ian. We'll of course watch for your stories on the Hockey News Women's site, and very excited to see the players in this tournament and returning to the PW when it wraps up. So thanks for the time, and we'll hopefully see you again on the Puck Drop podcast. And good luck with everything you're doing at the World Championship.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, talk to you later.
PWHL Puck Drop Podcast.